I know that the student's mom, she's a pastry chef, and the kids, in fact, like to help out in the kitchen. So chances are they're going to A, like this cookbook or the cookbooks that I've added to the library, or B, that they might also be interested in this series that's about a cooking competition. You know, it's just one of those things, getting to know them and building the relationships. I think that part is huge in helping them to identify something that maybe they don't know they're interested in reading it.
So one of the things that we talked about with the platform of people who teach was exploring sort of their stories and how they got started and what keeps them going, and then ultimately sort of like what's the new stuff they're after, like what's their developmental path, what's the thing in their growth that they're after. It's a question that I think a lot of us go throughout our days, we go through our functions, and then all of a sudden we realize like magic is happening in all these places, or good things are happening, but like how did they come to be? Like what are you on about in your practice? So the way that we wanted to start this conversation is like, why teach in general? Like, why are you here? Why are you teaching?
That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I have something to say about that, I would say. So I'm thinking about back in the day as a child. This is something I used to do, and in fact my brother was just here maybe about a week ago or so, and we had a chance to kind of share some memories and rehash some of the old days, right? And we're talking about the days when I used to teach him, because I'm 3 years older than he is, and so he would always be my first student. Anything I learned in school that day, I would come home and teach it to my brother. And so I hold that now as I think about what that process looked like, and maybe as I go back into, I don't know, from the days of our childhood, I tap into that a little bit and think about what my motivation was, because I wanted him to learn something. I wanted him to be a part of what I was doing. And so I thought I thought it was a good way for me to kind of process what I'd learned that day, to come home and teach my brother. And so I think about that even now as an adult, when I come into the room and I'm teaching our kids, what is it that I want them to gain, and what hopes and aspirations they have. Because that same thing that I did as a child, I'm now doing today. And so I never really thought about just sitting down and thinking about, okay, well, why was I even doing that? Why did we sit there? I had him as one of my students, and I had some stuffed animals too.
But I love the part that you said there too. The thing that you said that was so important that I just took away. I never had that experience. I never have gone through that sort of wanting to come home and teach that way. But the thing that really resonated with what you said there was you wanted to share part of what you learned with him, because you valued something, so you felt like you wanted to come home and share that with him.
So was that just a clarify? So it was really you wanting to teach him, or does he also kind of come to you to learn as well, or was it kind of mutual?
Okay, well, I'm the older sister, so it was more like it was more like, brother, this is what we're about to do.
Because I'm one of 9 kids as well, and I only have one older brother, so I had a lot below me. So in a lot of ways, I felt like a natural teacher as well. But I think it just kind of like naturally happens in a way when you have siblings, and you're a natural teacher.
I feel like it does. In hindsight, he'll say that he wanted to be there. But I honestly think as a child, I'm not really sure. But he did it anyway. He did it anyway. And he benefited from it. He said that his love for reading today is because of me starting there in that place with us as children. So.
Well, one thing that's interesting too, as a librarian, not all librarians work in a school though, or would be considered necessary a teacher. True. So what made you decide to want to be a librarian in a school versus in like a public library?
Oh, working with the kids, okay, because I believe that a book opens up the world to possibilities that are endless. And so I love reading, and I want kids to love reading too. I mean, I know we got to work on different strategies and skills and comprehension and all of those things, but the heart of it is the love and passion of reading. And so it's like, if I can share that every day with a student, if I can make them smile because they found that book that they connect with, that makes me feel so fantastic. And not just me, my library aide also, same thing. That's our goal every day, to make dreams come true in our library. We say that to the kids, especially when we found something that they've been looking for. We celebrate it. And they probably look at us like, looking at those crazy library ladies. But we celebrate when we found that book that they connect with, and it's a great feeling. But I do have to say, back to the back of the day in childhood, in my books, my mom actually has them in her attic. In the back of the book, I had little library slots for my books that I was loaning out to my friends. So like, isn't that something? And I totally forgot about that. But I used to do that. But this belongs to Christina. When you're done reading it, make sure you bring it back.
That is great.
That is amazing.
I didn't even know she still had that, and I forgot that I even did that.
Were you
so
like
here
that
I am today.
Were you like that with other things too, besides books? Or
Just
was
my
it
books.
Just
my
interesting.
I love the fact that you had
Just
a
my
mantra
books.
for. I mean, I do too. And we'll get to this in some other episode. But I think one of the things that I always say is, everybody deserves a thought partner, and that's something I hold near and dear to my heart. But when I say that, I really believe the words that are coming out of my mouth. Like I don't hold back. And when you say your mantra about opening that door of reading for kids, what was your mantra again?
Oh, opening a door of possibility. Because
Yeah.
the possibilities are endless.
Right.
They really are.
And when you say that,
it could take us there.
that kind of reaffirms your commitment, and I think that's an amazing mantra to kind of have. I think everybody should have some sort of mantra that keeps them.
Mm-hmm.
That's my motivation.
Well, what about for those tougher situations? I'm sure there are tougher situations where it's not that easy to find that though for a kid.
That's true. And okay, so then I'll speak to that too, because the thing of it is, the word that I don't like and the phrasing that I don't like is reluctant reader, just because I don't believe that that's a thing.
Yeah.
I just feel like they haven't found that book yet, and that's been proven. I mean, we've seen kids, you bring them to the right book and they're engaged. They are turning page after page. They'll participate in discussions if they have the right book. So I don't know. That's just one of the things that I'm always seeking, especially for that student that might be a little less certain about what book they want to read. I'm always seeking to make sure that we especially find that right one for them.
Yeah.
And
So
we don't give up trying.
How do we spread that though? I mean, like, what's the magic sauce for getting more people to say? Because I think even your distinction between less certain reader and reluctant reader, and your understanding and saying it's a process. At some point, I will get you.
That's right.
To
That's
have
right.
that book,
That's
right?
That's
so,
right.
So you're committed to that task, but then how do we, what's the magic sauce? Like, how do we bring that to a wider audience so that, because I think there are people that we, sometimes we walk around and we get in our heads, or we say reluctant, and we're just sort of unconsciously saying these words. How do we gain a better understanding of that?
I think it's difficult, but I think if we change the vocabulary and maybe stop using that phrase, reluctant reader, I think even kids hear us saying that about them, and they don't want to be labeled that way.
It reminds me of, I feel like I hear teachers say this all the time, more so with math. Like even the parents giving an excuse for the kids. Oh, my kid's not good at math. Well, I wasn't a math person either.
Right.
It's the same kind of thing, right? But with reading, so I didn't even. Yeah, it's interesting. See that kind of connection. But it's also kind of true because I remember, myself, I never really was attached to much assigned reading when I was younger. And then, I think I convinced myself that I had trouble reading. And then I remember my dad pointing out, he's like, you have no trouble reading. At the time I was trying to learn how to become a magician, to learn magic tricks. He's like, you have no problem reading this. He's like, why can't you do it here? It's like, I don't know. But it was more difficult though. So yeah. So I definitely understand why it is tough for some kids. But yeah, how do you find the thing that's interesting enough to hook you?
Overexposure.
Yeah.
So
It's almost like winning the lottery. It's like you play the lottery all the time, and you're like, you know what? I'm never winning. Why bother? And I wonder if that's how a lot of kids feel. Like I keep trying all these books, and it's not grasping me. It's not grabbing me. You know what? Maybe I'm not a reader. So how can we? What's the best way to
help kids have more of an identity?
I guess
reading?
Identity with reading. Yeah. I think we can all agree the best way to hook them is to find that thing that interests them.
Oh,
right?
definitely.
Without a doubt.
That explores their interest. And so, some of the books that we've shared have been because it could be the book itself. So maybe we're talking about telling a story. Maybe we're talking about their love for drawing and illustrating. So we talk about those things to maybe bring that out of them. But then also it could be, we have a lot of students that are interested in cooking. So getting to know them and the relationships that we build is so helpful, because that lets me know that, okay, I know that the student's mom, she's a pastry chef, and the kids, in fact, like to help out in the kitchen. So chances are they're going to, A, like this cookbook or the cookbooks that I've added to the library, or B, that they might also be interested in this series that's about a cooking competition, like the junior chef. I forgot the one I have, but I have a 3-series book in the library right now that's about a junior cooking competition show. And so, it's just one of those things, getting to know them and building the relationships. I think that part is huge in helping them to identify something that maybe they don't know they're interested in reading it. Right?
That brings me to another question. I mean, and this one's tricky. So I think as people who teach and bring this level of learning into all the kids that you serve, and all of your colleagues too, like in the building here. Did you have that one person in your life or development in your career that sort of like encouraged you to kind of like pursue the career of education? Like, you can do this, gave you sort of the launch point in your career. Did you have that one person that kind of advocated for you?
There's two people, and I'll say that because one is more recent, and it's a friend that I met through another friend, and we've been friends for probably about 15 years now. So she saw and recognized different things in me that she was like, I think you'd be a really good fit. I love working with kids. I've always done that to some capacity or another. But then I also had that passion for reading and just for, there's a magic in discovery. And so I guess through different things that we've been able to do and different projects we worked on together, there's something about being able to piece those two things together. And she saw that I had a passion for doing that, for learning, for teaching, for helping other people understand whatever the concept or idea might be, but to be able to put those two together and to make magic happen. Like, I just feel like that's what librarianship is. It gives you a chance to open up those doors of possibilities, have some ways to explore things you're interested in, and to discover the world around you. And that's huge. Like, because I just feel like there are those in my life that I can think of who inspire me that way. So my parents are those people, yes. But my love for reading came from teachers. And so there is one that I can think of offhand. Her name is Mrs. Rozier. Okay. And I remember her from middle school. She wasn't a library teacher. She wasn't a classroom teacher. But she would pull a group of students. And I was one of those that I wanted to have a quieter space during lunchtime. And we would have a group with her. And so we would sit and we would read and we would talk. We would talk poetry. We would talk books. We would just talk about what's going on in class. And it was so much fun. But just seeing how passionate she was about giving us that space to be ourselves, to explore something that was interesting to us. Like, that was really cool. And I just feel like that I want the library to be that place where kids can kind of come and find themselves in a book, or just in the relationship that they're able to build with myself as an adult and their peers.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Well, another thing I like about what you and what you do is because there's one thing to being an educator in a building. And because within this building, we're kind of sectioned off in what our avenue is, like being the art teacher, being the librarian, and you're more than just the librarian in the school. You also engage in the librarian and book community outside of school with your blog and things like that. And I think that's what makes can make a standout teacher is being not just a professional in the building, but being a professional in that community as well, being a contributor to that community, which I think is great, because I think a lot of people don't do that. Sometimes they just feel there's so much in life and in your work as well. I remember when I was student teaching, when I was in college going to school for art education, a lot of other art teachers that I'd meet didn't really create their own art anymore. They did when they were younger, but not as much while their work. We talked about this before. And out of like 20 that I had met, only one was still making their own art. And I think that is probably in other fields as well, including being a librarian. Not to say that those people don't read, but there's a difference between just being an avid reader and really, reaching out to the community, connecting with authors and things like that.
It's been a good experience because I think that it expands our resources. It opens up opportunities for me to connect the creators of books to our students and to make it real for them, because otherwise it's like there's this thing where the authors are here and here we are down here reading their books, and we feel like that may or may not be us one day. But I think that those connections are making it feel real and attainable. And when we see that they're just regular people that you have a chance to talk to, because we've Skyped with several authors, we write to authors and things like that. And when you make those meaningful connections, it just makes them a real, regular, everyday person. And I could do that too. Yeah.
So what's next for you? We always say that we have these sort of side projects, these passion projects, these things that we do outside of our day-to-day routine. That we sort of get on about, and we sort of try to breathe new life into them. But we're not saying we're perfect, but so what's next for you? What things are you on about, either in your own practice day to day or outside of the day? What's inspiring you right now? What are you on about?
Okay, I have to say I'm always looking for a side hustle. And I've been saying that. I keep telling people that sometimes I think they think I'm joking. I'm like, no, seriously.
Yeah.
You know, I'm connecting with all these great people. I'm like, guys, you know, if you need somebody to spread some book love or whatever that looks like, you know, hit us up.
Yeah, right.
Like everybody thinks I'm joking when I say that, but anyway. So I guess
when you say that though, as far as like in promoting other books, I know that you're working on a book as well.
Well, yeah, okay. So some people know that. Some people know that.
Is that now we know that? We know that. Are we all knowing that now?
I can cut that if you want me to. Just let me know.
We're not cutting that. All right.
It's up to her.
It's up to you.
You can skip it and move on if you want, or you can just.
All right, well, here's the thing. Yes, I am working on a project that's a work from my heart, honestly, because the work that I want to do is something that ties in with my grandfather and his contribution in Buffalo and Western New York. He was passionate about music. He was passionate about students also. Yeah. He worked for and was the head of Beam for a long time. So, because he was an engineer, and so he worked with... Beam? Oh, Lord, you're going to try to get me to remember what
it's okay, no.
I don't know the acronym.
It works with minorities, and it's an engineering program that's targeted at youth in Buffalo. And so he was passionate about that too. So I'm passionate about some of the things that he was. And so I've been researching him. I've been researching the club that he was a part of, musically speaking. And so I'm writing from that place. And where that'll take me, I don't know yet. So right now I'm doing research with the hopes of having a nonfiction picture book about not just his contribution, but the significance of the Colored Musicians Club in Buffalo.
I'm so
excited
forward to you doing this work.
It's a perfect project.
Here's the thing, because I'm curious to know your process throughout. Like you said, there's obviously going to be things that you learn about the publishing process of things, but I think there's going to be things that you learn about yourself.
Definitely.
Your family.
That's been interesting
I'm
already.
so interested to hear the rest of the story, right? So I can't wait to hear the rest of what's happening there. One other question that I have, I guess, is thinking about living that work there that you're doing outside. I mean, that has to play some role in the way that you're connecting with kids as writers, kids as readers. So what's the crossover there? Like, you're sort of living, you're walking the talk a little bit. Like, it goes back to your point of saying, you know, which I feel guilty about, but I'm working on it, is documenting my own process and feeling like it's a vulnerable, scary place to do it. But I think sharing progress, not perfection, is one thing, right? And letting other people know that it's okay to not have a polished product or whatever. But I think, so how is that impacting do you feel it crossing over into your work? Do you feel like you're coming in more like on a creative level, or connecting with kids and being able to talk about writing process a little bit differently?
I think there's a way, and I think you helped me with this too, because we were trying to do some poetry with our students. I think it was just last year, and there's something about them being able to see us work through that process, and that process might look like a struggle sometimes, and it might look frustrating sometimes, but that's real. And I think that maybe they look at us like we're perfect. I don't know. Right. I don't know that our students think that we're necessarily perfect, but they look at us as being the masters of that information and being able to just do it flawlessly. Right. But we have flaws. Adults have flaws, and we work through this process the best that we can. And I do try to communicate that with the students as best I can, as often as I can, because I think they need to see and hear that too. So I think in terms of what I've been doing, I need to own, and I've been told this, and you probably have as well, I need to own to actually say that I am a writer, because I'm in the stages right now of researching, and I'm like, okay, I'm researching right now. I didn't even change my profile to say that I'm writing anything or that I have a work in process.
Yeah. Taking the first jump is always,
it's hard.
Yeah.
That part's scary.
People know who
that's scary.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then I'm going to change it, and they're going to be like, she doesn't have a book.
Is this something new you're starting? It's like,
I can't wait. What did she say?
But
what
I think that's important, though. I think your sort of affirmation to yourself around, I am a writer, like naming that thing, I think is an important piece to that.
And being able to own it.
Yeah, I'm trying to get myself back up with my blog too, and I know the struggles of putting things out there that you're not certain of. But the one thing that always resonates with me, and I talked to Adam about this too, where we said, Seth Godin says, you claim to be a writer, and he'll say, if you have writing, a volume of writing, show me your bad writing. And if somebody says, well, I don't have any bad writing to show, then you can't really call yourself a writer. And if you think about that, that's really true, right? Because I feel like you have to have some writing volume in order to get to the really good piece, the piece that you want, the published piece, the piece you're willing to make a living off of, or whatever you're planning to do. You have to have some bad attempts before that. And I think that's a thing that I'm getting more comfortable with and trying to embrace. And I say that to colleagues that I work with when I go into the classroom when we teach writing. I say, if you can't demonstrate how to get yourself into trouble, how do you demonstrate for kids how to get themselves out of the trouble in writing? You have to have both. You have to say, you have to allow yourself to get into the trouble in front of them, write live, and then know how to work yourself back out of it. Like, they're going to do it. They're developing writers. If we come in with the perfect polished piece every time, boy, are we doing them a disservice. They need to see the process.
I think they do.
Interesting. I kind of connect that to what we were talking about earlier about, and I'll relate to social media, because I feel like we grew up in the time when social media, we saw it as a platform to put our best selves forward. So we take our things we're most proud of and we post it as an accomplishment. But I feel like young people growing up, they see that and think, oh, that's everything they're creating. Because we don't promote or post our flops or things that we're not as proud of, right? And again, when we started getting into social media, that's how I feel like we saw it as. Again, put our best selves forward. But kids growing up just see all these perfect people. You know, I'm not good enough. They look at my drawing. I can't post mine.
That's a great point.
You know, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, especially as teachers, we have to find a way to break through that. And I think documenting the whole process is something that more people should do, and we should encourage our students to do it, just so they can see the whole person, not just the snapshot.
That's a great point.
And that finished product.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't show how they got there.
Right. That's so true.
Yeah.
So true. Well, we appreciate your time. So where can people connect with you? How do they get in touch with you? Where do they reach out to you going forward here?
All right, well, I would say, because I'm very active on social media, thank you to some of my colleagues right here for encouraging me to do so. But now they're probably tired of the notifications that they're getting all the time. But I certainly can be reached on Twitter at CC Librarian.
CC Librarian.
On Twitter and Instagram. I'm a newbie on Instagram, so we talk about that learning process. I'm learning on Instagram. I am learning there, but I feel like I'm pretty confident on Twitter.
So at CC Librarian on Twitter and
at CC Librarian on Instagram.
Perfect.
And my blog where I talk about everything books, cclibrarian.com.
Perfect. So we'll link everything into this episode too, right?
Yeah.
We'll link it all down below, and people could reach out to you if they're looking to connect.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Glad to be
Appreciate
here.
it.